top three absolutely worst things that happen for teachers in public education this year. And if you're like, who is this girl? My name's Kristen. I'm a teacher and a local union president, and I cover education news from across the country. But there were a lot of bad things that happened for public education this year, so I'm sure I'm missing some. Starting off with what I think is one of the worst things to happen to public education this year, it's Linda McMahon getting confirmed as Secretary of Education. Not only does she seem to not like public education or not like teachers, she also has no understanding of teaching or public education. She has absolutely no experience in public education. She's actually the former president of the WWE. She also gives off the same overall vibe as this woman. The second worst thing that happened to public education this year was also from the Department of Education and all of the chaos that they caused. Back over the summer, they tried to withhold millions and millions of dollars of federal funding for schools, literally the week that the school year was starting. They also laid off hundreds and hundreds of employees within the Department of Education, including people from special education and the civil rights enforcement departments. Again, this is just the overall attack on public education that we have been seeing more and more of over the years, particularly that's been escalating since, January of 2025. Which is why there's no surprise that the third worst thing that has happened to public education and to educators this year is the parental rights movement really surging across the country. And you might say, oh, parents having rights, how is that an issue? Well, that wouldn't be an issue. The issue is that parental rights is just a code for being anti-LGBTQ, anti-woke, anti-public education, anti-teacher, anti a lot of things. They're actually really not pro parents having rights for a lot of things, especially if those parents don't align with their anti-values. And again, we see a lot of this stemming from the federal administration, particularly the Secretary of Education and the Department of Education right now, and including this Dear Colleague letter that got put out earlier this year. And I cannot stress this enough, but the right wing has been coming for public education for decades, literal decades, and being able to implement aspects of Project 2025 is only allowing them to accelerate what they have already been trying to do, which is take down public education and privatize it. That's why we see so many people on the right pushing for charter schools and private school vouchers. That's why we see the right demonizing teachers and our public education institutes. That's why we see people pushing for merit-based pay so that they can really push out the teachers that don't align with their values. Anyway, that was a little depressing, but we have to be staying informed. And like I said, I know there were other major terrible things that happened to public education that I'm sure I forgot about. So let me know what your top three worst items were.